In this episode, you will learn very common misconceptions about the fear of flying, helping you to reduce the spread of misinformation, which leads to a more effective way of dealing with the fear of flying in yourself and others. Let's go! Welcome to my channel Flight Coach. My name is Bas van Duin and it is my mission to help you get more out of life and your flying career through having less stress and more skills. Now the beauty of us human beings is that we have so many opinions, so many views on life, so many things that we consider truths. The downside of this is that people share their truths and also believe in those that are, to use a proper British word, complete bollocks. These are misconceptions of what is actually going on. And in today's episode we'll go into 7 of these misconceptions about the fear of flying. And being able to recognize them helps you deal with fear of flying in yourself and others. Fear is perfectly normal when learning how to fly. We've all had it. As discussed in earlier episodes, of course there are quite a lot of people that experience fear of flying. My estimate is that it's roughly 1 in 3 people. Now let's analyze this sentence a little bit. If you consider cars in the street and let's say 1 in 5 cars is black, then of course seeing a black car is perfectly normal. But that is not what is meant by someone stating this misconception. They confuse 2 things. They confuse the sometimes elevated stress that can go along with flying with a real fear of flying. I'd like to refer you back to my first episode for that distinction. These are 2 very different things, and if you treat them as being the same, your end result will be garbage. Compare it to going to the doctor with a nasty rash on your hand, while at the same time your other arm is broken. And the doctor wants to treat that in exactly the same way. You wouldn't want that, would you? You should just fly a lot. It will go away by itself then. Maybe you've heard of the saying, if you keep doing what you did, you keep getting what you got. And this is actually completely true in this case. Of course you also do need to keep flying, but you should also work on your fear. If you just keep flying and change nothing, you will eventually get worn out by constantly experiencing this fear of flying, not feeling any improvement. And eventually over time you will fool yourself into thinking that you tried. But you did not. You just did the same thing over and over and over again. For dealing with fear of flying, you should use a structured approach, which you apply and adapt. And then apply again and adapt again. And you could also seek help in dealing with your fear of flying. Listen, the more experience you have, like myself, the less fear you will have. The opposite is true in most cases. Of course, experience makes you better able to handle certain situations. But experience also makes you more aware of certain dangers and ways things can go wrong. And of course, your ability to handle a certain situation does not help you to deal with the irrational part of the fear of flying, which is the most difficult part to deal with. Just stop flying for a while, then your fear will go away as well. It is true that you may not think of your fear of flying when you've stopped flying for a while, but it bites back twice as hard when you start flying again. Fear of flying becomes a conditioned response, one that can also be unconditioned. Don't know if that's a proper word, but I love using it. Unconditioned. You should uncondition your fear of flying. But you can't do that by waiting. You should take action, as discussed in previous episodes. I should just have a chat with my instructor. He or she will for sure help me solve it. While I would definitely recommend you talking to an instructor about this, so he or she can best guide you while going through this fear, it is not by definition said that all instructors will be able to actually help you with this fear of flying. He or she can be perfectly able to teach you how to fly safe, how to fly high, how to fly long, how to fly far. But dealing with fear of flying requires a very specific skill set, which not all instructors possess. So how do you recognize if an instructor or a very experienced pilot is actually able to help you deal with your fear of flying? Well, when you tell them, you should watch for the response. If the response to you telling them that you have a fear of flying is something binary, like you should just keep pushing through and eventually you'll get over it. And if you don't, well then maybe this is not the sport for you. Well, that's what I call a binary response. It's either 1 or 0. This person does clearly not understand the delicacies involved in dealing with the fear of flying and is a great clue for you that you should look elsewhere for guidance and help in dealing with it. If I have a fear of flying, I should just quit this sport. I personally believe you should never quit anything in your whole life out of fear, because it will haunt you for the rest of your days. It's better to live with this fear for a while and work on yourself than to walk away in shame. And even if you cover up your departure from this beautiful sport with great excuses, like having so many other great hobbies, or having seen it all and wanting to try something new, there is still one person that will know what is going on. And that person, that's you. Dealing with fear makes you stronger. It makes you better capable of dealing with the things that life throws at you, whether it be in the sport paragliding or with something completely different. After you've conquered your fear and you still think that paragliding is not the hobby for you, then you can just walk away with your head held high. The misconception here is that experiencing fear of flying is a signal that this sport is nothing for you. Well, as we considered earlier, it's actually a very common thing that happens to a lot of people. So don't mistake having fear of flying for a certain signal. Having a fear of flying says nothing about your talent, your skill, your experience, or your compatibility to the sport. It is just something that is very intense and that taps into your entire being. So by nature it also taps into the more darker side. I would really love to hear from you in the comments down below if you've encountered any of these misconceptions, and if at the time of encountering you already knew that these were misconceptions. If you would like a weekly dose of content you can chew on, consider subscribing to my channel. Don't forget to press the little bell icon so you get notified when my next episode goes live. And if you appreciate this episode, consider pressing that like button. See you next time, see you in the air.